You could almost hear the collective groan from the Resident Evil community at the announcement of Resident Evil Verse, another multiplayer game that's not Outbreak, and now we get to take down our beloved heroes. Well, the open beta is here, sporadically, so here are my thoughts to date. A caveat, I am a big Resident Evil fan, but I'm not a fan of shooters. In fact, I hate them. Mainly because I lack the skills to play well, and as this footage will demonstrate, that's certainly the case here. So do my views matter? I'd say yes, because primarily Resident Evil Verse has been made for the fans, a 25th anniversary celebration, so my take on it, as a Resident Evil fan primarily, I would assume makes up a large demographic of the audience that Capcom are targeting. With a checkered history of Resident Evil multiplayer, let's see how we get on with RE Verse. This is the headline, folks. As it happens, I found this experience to be a lot more accessible than Resident Evil Resistance, the previous attempt by Capcom for multiplayer action, which was bundled with the last remake. Unlike Resistance, these matches are short, sharp, and to the point. Every character has their own weaponry and special abilities, but it is an inherently straightforward affair. Take down the other characters in the RPD hall, and the person with the most amount of points at the end, when the timer runs out, is the winner. The gimmick with Reverse here is that if you die, you become a BOW for a short period of time, and can run amok, either as a Fat Molded, a Hunter Gamma from Resident Evil 3, Jack Baker from Resident Evil 7, and Tyrant from Resident Evil 2 Remake, and the wonderful Nemesis from Resident Evil 3. And for me, this is where I felt RE-verse really shone through. This part of the game is really good fun, and in many ways, dying and becoming one of these classic monsters really epitomises the route Capcom were taking with regards to this multiplayer game. Each BOW, as it happens, have their own abilities as well as attacks, and depending on the number of viral gauges that you find scattered around in the hall, depends on which BOW you will morph into if you should succumb to death. Even though the Fat Molded is the basic level of BOW, I found myself quite amenable to this little critter. As you can see in the footage, I'm running around quite a lot as him, and I was quite fond of his suicide attack, which seemed to do quite a lot of damage. In terms of the playable characters, you can either be Jill Valentine, Claire Redfield, Leon S. Kennedy, Ada Wong, Hunk, and Resident Evil 7's Chris Redfield. As mentioned, they all handle quite similarly, but each have their own special abilities and weapons that they carry and pick up during the course of the game. For example, Hunk has this rather helpful cloaking device which temporarily makes him invisible to other enemies and characters. Jill can lay landmines, and Leon can go dual action with his pistols. Equally, special weapons for each character exist, with Leon using the shotgun and Ada using a crossbow, which quite frankly I found to be quite weak, and I felt quite vulnerable playing as her. As you run around this only map that's available in this beta, you can pick up more ammunition for your weapons, green herbs to restore your HP, as well as special weapons with very limited ammunition, such as the grenade and rocket launcher, as well as the spark shot from Resident Evil 2. So that really is it. You have this limited amount of time. You go around with your chosen character trying to kill other characters or BOWs as you encounter them. Pick up health to restore your stamina, pick up ammunition for your weapons, and pick up the viral gauges so that if you do die you become a more powerful monster to then run amok in the RPD. Great fun. But is it a competent shooter? Truthfully, I don't know. Did it play well? Yes. Were hits registered? Yes. Graphically, it seemed fine, but without a comparison to, say, something like Overwatch or Fortnite, I find myself unable to really give it a proper evaluation as to how it plays compared to the perhaps more well-established shooters. I will leave that to more professional players of the shoot-'em-up genre to be able to make that determination. But from my point of view, which is purely coming at it from a Resident Evil fan, what I will say is the title is very accessible and actually quite addictive. There is certainly a feeling of, go on, one more game syndrome, and for me that's a real positive, something I never got with Resident Evil Resistance, and to an extent I never got with Raid or the Mercenaries mode from previous entries. So whilst we've only got one map to play with, a limited number of characters and ultimately monsters, I think this is a really good start for Capcom, and I think they may have a fun, decent little multiplayer add-on for Resident Evil Village. What it would benefit from when it goes live, of course, is being part of a much wider ecosystem. Many fans were confused as to why this hasn't been added on as an extra to Resident Evil Resistance, and I completely fall into that camp as well. Does it really deserve its own separate release? I'm not sure yet, we'll have to see how it comes along. But for players like me that really aren't very good at this type of game, as long as there is a competent matchmaking system in place so I can play with other noobs and people who are perhaps more akin to single-player campaigns, I think there's a distinct possibility that this would be a success with hopefully a bit more support than Resistance. So a good fun start, sort out matchmaking, and we could be onto a winner. We will inevitably cover this in a bit more detail in future episodes of the Resident Evil podcast, so keep your eyes out for that by subscribing to our channel now or checking out our website.